Start in Woodside, Queens, not at the tennis, not yet. Start on 69th Street, where the awnings advertise Lehon and Pancit, where a bakery sells pandizzle warm at 6:00 in the morning, and where the elevated tracks of the 7 train rattle overhead every few minutes on their way toward the East River and out toward Flushing. From this corner of Queens to the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center is a ride of about 7 miles. On most Sunday mornings, the 7 train on that route is carrying commuters, tourists heading to Citi Field, or kids with baseball gloves. On the morning of August 24, 2025, the 7 train is carrying something it has never carried before. It is carrying a Filipino community heading to a US Open main draw match to watch a Filipino player. Her name is Alex Eala. She is 20 years old, unseeded, and drawn against the 14th seed. If you are watching that train fill up and asking yourself if she can win, you are asking the wrong question. The real question is quieter and stranger. Why are so many people who have never been to a tennis match before suddenly all at once on the 7 train? That question matters more than the score line. The easy story every major outlet will tell you is a resume story. Alex Eala, Rafa Nadal Academy graduate, Miami Open giant killer, Eastbourne finalist, the first Filipina to do this and that. That story is true, but it is also shallow. It treats the crowd as a byproduct of the career, follow the wins, get the fans, clean and boring. If you stand on that Woodside corner and watch who is getting on the train, you notice something the resume story cannot explain. You notice grandmothers who could not name a single WTA event before this year, nurses coming off overnight shifts, still in scrubs, under their Philippine flag jerseys, and teenagers born in New Jersey whose parents were born in Cebu. These are not tennis fans who found Alex Eala. These are Filipino-Americans who were already here, and something about this specific Sunday made them decide to be here together. That is a different phenomenon than a fan base, and understanding what it actually is tells us something about her, about them, and about what the next decade of Philippine tennis is going to look like. Alex Eala, trained since age 13 at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, beat world number 2 Iga Swiatek at the Miami Open in March 2025 to reach her first WTA semifinal. In June, she made the final at Eastbourne on grass. Heading into the US Open, she sits just outside the top 70, unseeded in New York and nursing a shoulder issue from the hardcourt swing. That is who she is on paper, but paper is not why the 7 train is full, and that gap between the paper and the platform is where this story lives. There is a puzzle here that does not solve itself with the obvious tools. Before this Sunday, Alex Eala had played 0 US Open main draw matches in her career. Yet across the 2025 season in Australia, Miami, Eastbourne, Wimbledon and Toronto, broadcast cameras kept finding groups of fans in Philippine flag colors with homemade signs in Tagalog and English. How does a player build a traveling, recognizable, cross-continental fan base before her first Grand Slam main draw match? She is also unseeded, ranked outside the top 70. Under normal box office logic, unseeded first-round matches get out of courts and modest crowds. Yet Filipino community pages in New York and New Jersey circulated meetup plans for days, ticket resellers noticed the pattern before the draw was even out, and community organizations in Woodside and Jersey City coordinated group travel. Why does an unseeded player command this kind of pre-match mobilization? Then look at her recent form. Yes, she reached the Eastbourne final and beat Swiatek, but 2 weeks before her US Open debut in Cincinnati, she took the first set against Amanda Anisimova, led 2-love in the third, and then lost 6 straight games to exit the tournament. That is the resume of a player people are still trying to figure out, and fans generally do not travel for uncertainty, they travel for coronation. So if they are not showing up for her wins, what exactly are they showing up for? 3 paradoxes emerge: a cross-continental fan base before a slam debut, a pre-match mobilization for an unseeded player, and a crowd that shows up regardless of form. None of it fits under the standard assumption that crowds are the product of careers, that a player wins, a fan base grows, and the fans show up. But if you flip the assumption, everything changes. What if the crowd was never downstream of the career? What if the crowd was already assembled geographically, culturally, and generationally long before Alex Eala was born, and was simply waiting for someone to point at. Then everything stops being a paradox and becomes visibility. She is not creating a fan base, she is making an existing community visible to itself. The New York and Jersey City tri-state area is home to more than 260,000 Filipino-Americans. Roughly 94,000 live inside New York City itself, a population that grew faster than the city's overall Asian population over 5 years. Nationally, Filipino-Americans number more than 4 million. It is not a fan base Alex Eala built. That is a community that has been here for 4 generations. Nurses at Elmhurst Hospital, maritime families in Jersey City, teachers, engineers, home health aides, and second- and third-generation kids in Woodside, Bergenfield, and Union City. They have been buying groceries, paying taxes, and raising children for decades. What they lacked until Alex Eala was a single scheduled hour on a US Open show caught to be in the same room about the same thing. She is not the cause of the crowd, she is the permission slip. The train was always full, she just gave the passengers a stop to get off at. The math behind this is stark. Compare more than 4 million Filipino-Americans nationally to the total number of Filipino players who have appeared in a US Open main draw before Alex Eala in the Open era since 1968. That number is 0 across 57 years. The ratio of Filipino-Americans to Filipino US Open main draw representatives for nearly 6 decades was mathematically infinite. That is a statistic about waiting. An enormous, well-established diaspora had no one at this level to gather around. The demand was there the entire time, and when a demand building for 57 years meets its first unit of supply, the 7 train fills up immediately. Listen to what Alex Eala herself says. All year in on-court speeches and press conferences from Wimbledon to Toronto, she has thanked her supporters using a specific Tagalog word, kababayan asterisk. In Toronto, she opened her remarks with, "Maraming salamat sa aking mga kababayan. Thank you very much, my countrymen, my fellow Filipinos." She does not say my fans. In Tagalog, asterisk kababayan asterisk is not a word for a fan base. It is a word for people who share your homeland. It is a word about kinship, not consumption. In Toronto, she remarked that Filipino fans made her feel like she was home. She understands that the energy in the room is not something she created, but something she was let into. The day itself matters more than the match result. If the crowd were downstream of results, the emotional weight of Sunday would depend entirely on the score line, win for joy, lose for silence. Under the reframe, Sunday is historic before the first ball is struck. For the first time in 57 years of professional tennis, Filipino families across Queens, Jersey City, Bergen County, Cerritos, Dali City, Cebu, and Manila are tuned into the same hour on national television to watch the same Filipino player walk onto a US Open show court. The diaspora is not buying a guaranteed result. They are buying a moment of simultaneity, a collective hour where the community is briefly in one place about one person. The emotional climax is not the tiebreak. It is the moment before the first serve when the camera pans the stands and the flags are already there. This perspective does not guarantee that Alex Eala will win her debut, advance past the second round, or win a Grand Slam. Her performance in Cincinnati highlights real questions about closing matches under pressure at the tour level, and her shoulder issue remains a factor. Nor does it mean every Filipino fan in Flushing is local, as many traveled from California, Toronto, and the Philippines. But the critical mass of the crowd was already present and waiting, making this rapid mobilization possible for an unseeded first-round match. Whatever happens on the scoreboard, August 24, 2025, does not create a fan base, it names one that was already there. She did not build them in a transactional sense, she found them and they found her. The traveling fans across Australia, Miami, Wimbledon, and Toronto are a diaspora that finally has coordinates. The pre-match mobilization for an unseeded player is 57 years of demand meeting its first unit of supply. The crowd showing up regardless of form is showing up for the room itself, the first hour in the Open era where a diaspora of millions is scheduled to watch one of their own walk out under the New York lights. The map is no longer empty, and everyone now knows exactly where to look.